Welcome to the Integrated Scenario Explorer tool, or ISE, that has been created as part of the Sustainable Pathways to Research project. In this tutorial, you will learn how to put zoning layers into the ISE model, and we assume that you know the basics of how the model operates. The ISE is a land use change model, and its intended use is to inform decision making. So running the ISE model shows how land use changes over time. Here you can see one of the outputs from the ISE model, which is an animation of the land uses through time, or a visual of use changes for the Auckland area from 2007 to 2035. Up in the top left-hand corner, if we zoom in, we can see what year it is for. Over here on the right-hand side, we've got a key of the different land use classifications. And here you can see how they change over time. I'll just zoom into the residential urban area here in red. The salmon, red and maroon colours are the residential areas. And then you can see how that is changing over time, returning back to 2007 there in that step. So what you can see here is the baseline scenario, and it's given the current land use. It also takes into account the drivers such as population change and the economic activity from our economic model that sits within the ISE as well, and also the current zoning rules regarding land use, and they're taken from Auckland Council's plans. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is show how a change in those plans, a change to those zoning rules, would affect the outcome of the model. In terms of analysing a new policy development in ISE, I'm going to look at Auckland Council's designated special housing areas. Zoning is an attempt to stimulate housing development, and these special housing areas are the cream zones here represented on this GIS map. As with any zoning designation, it does not mean that all land within that area will switch to the designated use. For example, in business areas, land may still be used for residential purposes. This is because there are many other factors, such as existing use, suitability and investment, that determine what land is used for. ISE is a tool that can be used to explore the scenario of a land zoning change. The special housing areas in this GIS map are contained in a shapefile. ISE requires its spatial data inputs as raster files. This tutorial will show you how to input a raster file into the ISE model. When you open up the ISE software, two dialog boxes open. The first is the land use map, and the second is the main window. In the main window, under the policy measures and the driver key, you can find the zoning tool. So here you can see the plans and categories. Under the plans and categories are all the rules from the Auckland planning framework. So these relate to specific geographical areas, and also this is the capacities for growth study. So you can see for residential, you can see, I'll just bring up the map. You can see this is where there is capacity within the region for residential areas, different types of residential. And also we've got a category precedence. If we bring up residential medium density here, we can sequence the timing of when the rules will come into effect. Again, if we preview the zoning map here, we can see what's actively stimulated, permitted, controlled, restricted, discretionary, non-complying and prohibited. So essentially what we're going to do with the special housing areas is create a raster file with the special housing areas, and where residential is going to be actively stimulated within those areas. So now we're going to turn a shapefile into a raster for the ISE model, and there are two important points to check when converting a shapefile into raster. So we begin with this shapefile here. Again, you can see the special housing areas for Auckland, and the first thing to check is that the coordinates match the requirements specified in the ISE technical report. And the second thing to check is that each unique name that is in the special housing area plan has got a unique number, and that number series must begin with 0. So to do the first check, we just need to go to Geoprocessing. We go to Environments. We go to Processing Extent, and here are the coordinates. And these will be specified in the ISE technical report. They'll be different for Auckland and for Wellington, obviously, and for the different regions. But these need to be exact to ensure that the map is in the right position and that it's the right size for ISE. I'm just going to leave these set as they are because they are set for Auckland. The second important step or cross-check is to assign the unique number beginning with the 0 to the name that is in the Special Housing Area Plan. To do this, I will open up the GIS attribute table in Excel and isolate the plan name of the Special Housing Area. So, in the Special Housing Area layer of your GIS shapefile, if you open up the attribute table by right-clicking, open the attribute table, and then you are going to, under the table options button, you are going to export this table. So I'm going to export all records. I'm going to choose where to save it and remember where it's saved. And the important thing to remember is to save it as a text file here. If I save that, okay. Do you want to add the new table to the current map? Just click No here. Okay, so once you locate where you've saved that text file, open that location and make sure you get the text document, not the XML document. Open it in Excel. Click on the first column. Under the data, convert it to a column. Next, so it's going to recognize where the commas are, so organize the data. And what you're interested in here is the plan area name, this column C. So we can actually delete the rest of these columns. And I'm going to just make a duplicate of C. I'll pop it in here. And under this I'm going to remove duplicates because there may be two special housing areas with the same name. Yes, and as you can see there were 6 duplicate values found and 84 unique values. So I'm going to assign each special housing area a unique number, and the thing is to start it with, I'll just turn that into a number. The thing to do is to remember is to start with 0. ISE requires that this list begins with 0. So in total we've got 82 unique codes, unique number codes. So I want to match that in here. So you can either do this by a VLOOKUP table or a index and match. I'll use index and match. So I'm matching Bedford here in H, and it'll return this unique number here. Just press enter and I'll copy that down. And as you can see there, the 6 duplicates here, Wesley College extensions, they all have the same number. So these numbers unique numbers in column D are going to be used. I'm going to input those unique numbers back into my shapefile. So go back into your ARC map of the special housing areas. Open up your attribute table. And what we're going to do is add a field for these unique codes. We'll call it raster ID. Just change that to long integer. Okay, and this should appear over here in the right hand side. So just enable your editing. Go back into your Excel. Select these unique codes. Copy them. And again, making sure that they begin with 0. And paste them directly in here at the start. So I'll just stop editing. Do you want to save your edits? Yes. Okay, back to the shapefile. At the moment we could convert this shapefile using within our ARC toolbox here. We could just convert it into a raster file. But before we do that, I am going to do a dissolve, and I'm going to dissolve the the special housing areas into one classification, and the reason will become apparent when we try to import it into the ISE model. At the moment there's 83 different classes for our zones for the special housing areas, and for the purpose of this tutorial, for other scenarios you may want to keep many of them and have different rules within each of them, but for the purpose of this tutorial I'm going to just have the same rules. What I'm going to try and do is to encourage housing to go into these areas, different classes of residential housing. So I'll just save this, dissolve it first. I've created an extra field, given it the same value so that I can collapse it into that. Okay. Just give it a second to dissolve and check that it has. So yes, here it's shown up in pink. That dissolve has worked. Just check the attribute table. Yeah, it's just one feature. So close that down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to convert this dissolved table to a raster file. So in the ARC toolbox here, click on to raster, feature to raster. So the input feature is this dissolved file here. Choose that. The field is CCC. Now in this output raster file, one thing to watch out for is that it's not a .gdb file. So I'm just going to save it in this video tutorial folder. Just always remember where you're saving it. I'll call it Special Housing Area Zone and save it as a TIFF. It's probably one of the most important things to remember here, just that otherwise it may not save properly. And again, this output cell size is important. It's at 504. I want it at 50 because ISE for Auckland is on a 50 by 50 meter resolution. For Wellington it's 100 by 100. But again, check with the technical specifications of the model what this should be saved at. Okay. And that's created my special housing zone raster file, which will be finally ready to input into the ISE model. So we can close this down and go to the ISE model. Finally, it's time to go back to ISE. We'll open up our Auckland file. Again, we've got the land use map. We go to the main window, we're going to policy measures and zoning, and we want to import the raster file, the plan for the special housing areas. So I click on import plan. The name of the plan is Special Housing Area Zone. Trick is to remember where you've saved the file. saved it in video tutorials. This is the state SHA zone. Open. Either use an existing legend. I think there's one here for, or you can create a new legend, edit it, derive from map. Okay. And try and import this. And here we see it's appeared. So we'll just take show it. There we go. The special housing areas. And then we can go to category precedents, special housing areas. I'm going to move them up here because they get we want to change the zoning status in it. So we can click on we're trying to encourage residential development in these special housing areas. So for residential low density, I'm going to make it a actively stimulated activity. For residential medium density, it's going to be actively stimulated again. And for residential high density, the zoning status will be actively stimulated. So you can change these as well. Say you can maybe want to discourage livestock farming in these areas. You could make them prohibited. Horticulture and fruit growing, maybe you want to discourage them. Again, this is just creating the scenario, so we'll prohibit them. And then now we can run the scenario looking at what happens in these areas over time. Running the model has been covered in a different tutorial, so here I'm just going to show you the output of the SHA scenario. What you see here is the output in the map comparison kit. I ran the business as usual, created a land use map for 2031, and also the special housing area scenario, what happens within 2031. And here we can compare the two maps. So here you can see changes. This is for medium density residential. I can choose any land use category to compare. The green areas show changes in both maps, in the business as usual and in the special housing area scenario. The red areas, we can zoom in here. The red areas was where medium residential area would have gone in the business as usual, but it hasn't. It's probably been diverted in the special housing area scenario. So here you can see the blue areas are where medium density residential areas have been sort of forced in by the scenario. Okay, I've quickly just switched over to, I've grabbed screenshots of the changes. This is just showing it in Paint. So on the side here are the differences between our two scenarios in 2031, what happens to medium density residential area. And here on this map you can see the special housing area zones. So what we can do is overlay them, go back to your GIS and overlay these layers just to see what changes have been made within each of the areas. So I'm switching back into ArcGIS again, and here I'm showing the special housing areas. They're marked in yellow now, and I've exported the special housing area 2031 scenario back into GIS here, and you can see I can zoom in to see what's actually happening. Let's just zoom into this Hobsonville special housing area, and you can see where the changes are being made. So again, you can see this is again for medium density housing. You can see that they've gone into this area. There's also this area here that very little housing, medium density housing has gone in there. So this just gives an idea of the types of analysis that you can, the outcomes of the outcomes of the model and how you can analyse them from a policy perspective. Again, these are just some of the changes that you can identify. This area here has got a lot of medium density housing that has gone in there. The ISE model is quite a powerful tool for analysing a policy change. There are many parameters that can be analysed in terms of the policy outcomes. Here I have shown you how to input the zoning layer in raster format into the ISE model and shown you a snapshot of some of the output from the land use changes. Maps can be generated for different classification of land use, and maps can be logged for different time intervals. Hopefully this tutorial was useful and gets you started using ISE to explore the effects of policy changes on future land use.